Alana, we are live.
We are live. Welcome to Art and Heart of Menopause.
Indeed.
I'm Chitra,
Welcome.
and this is Clarissa, and we're here every single week talking about menopause and adjuncts to menopause.
Menopause, getting older, all sorts of things. Yes.
Yeah. Would you like to talk about, introduce yourself?
Well,
yeah.
I'm Clarissa. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner. I work predominantly with women who are menopausing, as we might say. And my areas that I really concentrate on are Chinese nutrition therapy and Qigong, with a strong emphasis on Qigong for women. I'm really passionate that women can be given the power and the knowledge to navigate what can seem a very overwhelming period of their lives so much better, to know that it isn't all just you're failing, take hormones, take medicine, that's the only route. There are many, many ways and to go through this, and ancient techniques like Chinese medicine and Ayurveda have been working in this space for thousands of years. We have something to bring to the party, I think.
Yeah. My apologies for being a little distracted. Substack has changed its has changed its homepage, and so I usually look for comments and responses on my laptop, because at this time we can only do lives via our cell phones or via the app, and it's hard to see things there. So my apologies. So I'm going to introduce myself. So my name is Chitra, and I'm a doctor of Ayurveda specializing in women's health, specifically peri through postmenopause. And we're here together because we are discovering similarities between Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. And there are also cultural differences as well as climactic differences. But the way of approaching the thoughts around the body and menopausing is not from a reductive perspective. It is from a very holistic perspective, where everything that we do affects everything else. And we also see it very much from a spiritual and holistic perspective. So not only is it the body stuff, but it is also the mind stuff and the emotional stuff and relational, and we can go on from there. So yeah, there between Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, you know how sometimes people will say, well, between you and I have a decade of experience and you have a decade of experience, therefore we have 2 decades. So if we were to use that kind of logic between Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, we could say 10,000 years worth of
just about,
knowledge. Although Indians sometimes will say, yeah, Ayurveda is 10,000 years old. And it's very possible that it's older than what we claim it to be, because like most indigenous medicines, there was an oral tradition.
Yeah.
And the oral tradition gave way to written traditions. And as we know, women's traditions were mostly oral, passed from one woman to the next. And that's been wiped out almost completely, with lots of women in this day and age just rebuilding that, or trying to, and rediscovering.
Yeah, you're so right, Chitra. And I think, same with the Chinese tradition. I mean, written, we believe that the Yellow Emperor's little book, the sort of, the Bible, if we like, of Chinese medicine is about 3,000 years old. But we know prior to that people were practicing. We know that the earliest medicine was the use of things like sound healing, the Tao Yin movements, the use of food, then came herbs, and then somewhere along the way, it started to be written down. And so the traditions go back into shamanic practices that are as old as we've been on this planet.
Yes, exactly. And they communicated, the different indigenous peoples, they communicated with one another. We tend to think that there was no communication between continents, between cultures, but there definitely was communication. Which is why this conversation is so rich, because I've seen Ayurvedic practitioners cross over into Chinese medicine somewhat. I've seen integral nutritionists lean over into that, but there are very few conversations when we're looking at medicine from the Ayurvedic perspective and then from the Chinese medicine perspective. I think we're kind of unique there.
I think we are. And I think the interesting thing is both of us have mentioned over time Tibet. And it's very interesting how a lot of practices, particularly a lot of women's practices, have come out of Tibet, which is, if we think of where it is geographically, it sort of sits between the two countries.
Yeah.
And of course, now it has a bit of a sad history and is very suppressed, but it has been a place of rich learning, rituals, beautiful herbal medicine and herbal practices, which have obviously crossed across the mountains between the two distinct cultures.
And that's the interesting thing about herbal medicine in and of itself. Nature duplicates herself in all parts of the world. Seeds and pollens travel on the wind, travel on animals, through animals, inside of animals and birds. And so plants, herbs have developed everywhere. And it's the similar species, but the use of them may be slightly different. Depending on soil quality and where those plants actually were able to thrive or adapt and thrive. So it's fascinating. Like the Chinese medicine is talks about licorice quite often.
Yeah.
And the Western medicine also talks about licorice, and Ayurveda also talks about licorice, right? And it thrives, this lore thrives in various cultures, various places. So it's just a fascinating thing to collaborate and to be in communication from various perspectives. It's like a mandala. It's a hologram in a sense.
Indeed. But today we've got another big topic. Hey, Chitra, when aren't we on big topics? We're going to talk about skin,
We're talking about skin. Yes. In the West, we lump skin with hair, skin, nails. And there's a reason for that, because it's about the external, which is what we tend to focus on, is the how do I look to someone else? And in menopause, it's that external reflection or expression is changing. Women just don't know what they look like in the mirror. Inside, we're 20, 30 years old, but outside, we're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and I think sometimes that change can happen quite quickly. We're sort of, traveling along and then suddenly looking in the mirror, oh gosh, that's changed. And I think we feel it very acutely because there's so much emphasis on the body and the external body in our current culture. And that's coupled with a lot of anti-age or ageist type of mentality that plays out everywhere, in social media, in our workplaces. And so I think that external part of ourselves, our skin, becomes a big focus for us personally, but it's also big profit. We'll no doubt get back to that one as well. So in that, insecurity and shaming has grown a massive multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes. In the anti-aging, anti-wrinkle, rosacea, skin. So there's so many things that can happen with the skin, and so many ways to care for the skin. And so skin has three purposes, basically. One is that external, self-esteem. And that's a big, that's an issue for perimenopausal women and menopausal, because when they change without being able to control it, especially externally, it affects everything. So the self-esteem is kind of what I call the top of the pyramid of that. And it's also kind of the foundation. So it has that purpose. It also has four purposes, but that's like the external stuff. It also is protective. And that is its major goal. So if we're talking about the immune system, this is where the skin itself and the health of the skin is going to affect the immune system. It's the largest organ of immunity.
It is. Yeah.
It's
the largest organ in the body.
It's the largest organ in the body, exactly. And then what it also does, and some people, I sometimes think of it as just three things, but it's actually four things because there are four purposes. One is to digest. So it's taking in anything that is on the body, right? Good or bad. And the other thing is to express. So it pulls things out. So it's also a great detoxification organ. So those are the main buckets. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's absolutely that it is. And of course, everything else hangs on it. It's the kind of outer from which, holds us in, holds the outsides in and gives us shape and form and sort of structure. Because without it, we just be a load of muscles and bones, and skin holds us all together, holds it all in, maybe makes us that sort of outward person.
Yes, exactly. Or, we could have an exoskeletal system, right? We could, but then our movement would be hindered. So the skin and its elasticity allows us to move and be the way we are. Yeah.
So it's such a vital big organ. It's the big organ of the body, and I think so much can change, can't it, in perimenopause? Obviously there's one side, which is the aging, and we know that there is a loss of collagen, a loss of hydration, a change in the sort of clumping properties of hyaluronic properties of the body. Oh, do not be moving. And the other thing is, it is also a space where we can end up with things like rosacea. We can get acne like a teenager and wonder what's happened. I had terrible rosacea through my perimenopause. It was like shocking. I'd always been slightly on Pitta, that And
really?
it
No,
was
I hadn't
really,
noticed.
but
No
really,
clue.
but really bad. It was really ugly when and nothing I did changed it. I tried all the lotions and potions and all the lights and all the stuff. And then suddenly, the other side of perimenopause, the rosacea's gone.
Yeah. So, Pitta, as you'd mentioned. Hi, Mary Beth. Welcome. And please feel free to ask us any questions you have. So Pitta is the constitution, the archetypal bioenergetic constitution of fire and a little bit of water. And so the more fiery you are, or have that constitution, the more you're going to see redness in the body. And when you go a little beyond that, you're going to see also the color yellow. So the yellow, like when the liver, which is a fire organ, has problems, you're going to start seeing yellowing in the skin. You're going to see yellowing in the eyes. So that, and the red color is on the skin is the color of inflammation. It's inflammatory skin. So interesting that the skin has rosacea or acne just when we are trying to remove some of that fiery part. So the hot flashes are a different expression of the same pitta and fire being removed from the body.
Indeed. Yeah. So, I mean, Chinese medicine very much talks about the skin as being the organ of the lung system. So, the thing that is closest to the outer world, that is in contact with the outer world. And it's interesting that skin becomes so prominent in perimenopause because perimenopause is also the metal element in Chinese medicine. This is the metal time of your life, the season of the metal. Metal is the element connected to the lungs. So it's very much this external side of ourselves. It's reflecting very much what's going on with us internally. And it's also very much our boundary to the world and how strong that is or isn't. And I think this is a time when perimenopausal, we're vulnerable, but it's also a time when we're called to build our boundaries.
Yes, absolutely. So this is where Ayurveda looks at the skin differently because we don't see it from a lung perspective, even though it does do the work of expelling and taking in, which is what the lungs do with the air and some water. But when I look at the skin, I look at, first of all, my understanding of the skin is basically we are worms. So, so the body is like a worm. So we have this main channel that's on the inside, and this is how we come to be. So we have this main channel on the inside, which becomes the digestive tract, right? From the mouth all the way to the anus and right. So that's the inside. And then the outside of it, is the skin. So the skin is always going to be a reflection of the digestive system. So that's the, thank you, Mary Beth. We'll see you, next time. And you can see the replay. We bring it up really quickly. So So we start looking at it from that perspective. So the skin is the reflection of the gut. And during perimenopause, our digestion starts slowing down. Secondly, it is a function of Rakta. Rakta is one of the 7 functional tissues of the body. And what that is, it's the blood, which is separated from the plasma. So when you're feeding the blood itself, it's going to reflect on the skin. And thirdly, we're looking at another functional tissue called asti, which is the bone tissue. Yeah. So we're looking at it from very different perspectives. So the bone tissue is where Vata lives, right? And it's one of the main functions of that. So the mineral contents of the skin and how it goes in and out and how elastic it is a direct reflection of what's going on with the bone. So the way we feed the bone and therefore the skin is we have to go through all of the other tissues. So the adipose tissue, which is the fat cells, those that happens next. So it's very, very different. So we're looking at rasa, which is our food in the plasma. Then we look at the blood itself, whether its health. Then we're looking at rasa rakta mamsa, the muscle tissue. Then we're looking at the adipose tissue, and then we look at the bone tissue. So that whole channel is going to reflect on the skin.
Yeah, it's not quite like that in the Chinese system, but we do have the same or similar layers in the body. So the skin is the outer layer. It's related to the lung system. Then we have the fire, the heart system with the blood and the lymph. Then we have the digestive system. That's the earth element. Then we go to wood, which is the tendons and sinews of the body. And water element is the bone. So they are connected through an elemental system. They're just expressed a bit differently.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's what we were talking about earlier on, is that we're looking at it, but it's like coming from another direction. So the fact that you're looking at air and water, we just see it the opposite way around from an Ayurveda, so we're looking at it from water, then air, rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And of course, the lung system often, and the autumn is a time of dryness. So although women are also going through a tremendous amount of dryness, if their kidney system, if their yin energy is low or deficient, which is likely to be in perimenopause, that will cause dryness throughout the body. But the skin and the lungs are also part of dryness, is one of their characteristics. So it's almost like you've got both going on. You've got the sort of fundamental shift as we're aging, but we've all and the shift in the kidney yin, but we've also got this lung system, this metal element very prominent, which means that dryness and drying of the skin, which of course leads to, sagging and wrinkling and all of that, is inherently there. It then begins in perimenopause, which is often why in Chinese medicine we really start talking about a different kind of need to care for the skin. Really, as we come into our mid to late 30s, there needs to be a real shift, because that's when we recognize the start of the menopause journey.
Yeah, it within Ayurveda, it starts the skincare starts at birth, basically. It really does. And one of the first things that they do with children is they oil the skin of the babies, because they've gone from a wet environment to the air, which is drying, but it also calms them down. And it helps, and it gives fats and calcium and whatnot through the skin. So that's their digestive system before their digestion even starts. And then every 10 years, there's a new thing that is done in order to promote longevity. But by the time we hit 50, we should have already a good skincare routine that is not based in lotions and potions. It is just like a brushing of the teeth. This is what you do on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say it's not the same in the Chinese tradition. It isn't lotions and potions. It's much more grounded in physical rejuvenation techniques. You know, people in the West have learned about things like Dosha and jade rollers. They're part of a daily routine for Asian women. And if you've ever been or know anything about Japanese beauty routines, I worked with that for a while, and I went to Japan for an extended time, and I was just like mind boggled at the routines and the steps that women went through every day. But certainly so really it isn't the Western's, anti-aging slap it on. It's far more integral into rituals, into what we eat, into qigong practices. It's a whole way of life to care for skin.
Yes, exactly. So in Ayurveda, we have what we see. So Mary Beth wants to know if we can recommend a book or two in these traditions on perimenopause and menopause. And thank you for subscribing. Well, so there are two books written by Western people, and that's the thing is that when we're talking about Ayurveda, I can't speak for Chinese medicine. When we're talking from the perspective of Ayurveda, it's got such a rich culture in India that when it got translated to the United States or to the West, it didn't translate well. It became very difficult to follow, just like what you were saying about the Japanese ritual of caring for the skin. If I told a woman to start doing that, any of these rituals, they would start and stop because it's difficult for us. It's not in our system, and the way we think about things is also a little bit different, So,
Yeah.
so in Indian medicine, when you read about them, they'll go, "This is the number one thing you have to do." And then 3 minutes later, they'll say, "This is the number one thing you have to do." And they will list, okay, so these are the 3 things that you have to do, and they'll list 5 things. It's simply a different way of looking at it. So there is a book by Robert Svoboda, and it's called Women's something. And I can't remember. And then there are 2 of them that are really, really good that I would recommend. But I also would recommend that you get to know what the principles of Ayurveda first, because basically when we're talking about the same things over and over again, about your digestion, about lifestyle, about health, skin and health. So just immerse yourself in this. And now that you've subscribed, you will get to know these various concepts.
And I think Chinese medicine has all these traditions because obviously there's a lot of books written, but they're written either from the perspective of acupuncture. And the one book that I personally reference a lot is the 7 Times a Woman, which is by a doctor of Chinese medicine, Leah Andrews. And she used to have a wonderful podcast and blog, but it sort of died away just before COVID. And I really, really like that. It gives a lot of tips. There is a lot of practitioners' work written into a lot of Chinese texts. So they're not really written as much for lay people as they are for practitioners. And so people start talking about acupuncture point X, Y, and Z, and you're going, where's that? And there's a lot of herbal things. And even in Leah's book, I would say, I wouldn't ask a lay person to do that because those herbs may not be right for you, or they could actually be quite adverse for you without you realizing that, because again, it's sometimes much more complicated, because below symptoms or imbalances, as Chinese medicine would say, we're talking about seasons, we're talking about something called your constitution. Which of the 5 elements or combination of elements make up you in the base? So when you go to a practitioner, we look at all of those things and then say, this is what's right for you at this moment in time. So I think that's something we say a lot, and I know it's the same in Ayurveda, that a lot of it's about this personalized medicine, not generalized medicine.
Yes. And that's the thing with books is that it's either they're either too general or they're talking to practitioners. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, when we look at skin, we are always looking at those 3 doshas, right? And so each of the doshas are going to have their own classifications of how we look at the skin, so there's certain things that are very recognizable. So we've got Vata, which is air and ether elements, same thing. Pitta, which is fire and a little bit of water. And then there's Kapha, which is earth, earth and water. And in the United States, I have discovered that many women, I'm always recommending oil for the body, and it helps nourish the skin and it does a lot of good. But women in the United States are very, very afraid of oils. Because they remember being a teenager and having oily skin. So, so they don't do that, and they would rather go on to some other kind of moisturizer lotion, which is usually the oil mixed with air. So that moisturizer sits on top of the skin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, it's not that it's drying, it's just, it's more of a barrier than actually nourishing through all of the 7 layers of the skin. But the Vata dosha is, we can see it's dry, it's thinner. So this is throughout life. If there's a problem with it, it'll be flaky. If you're dehydrated, you'll have more wrinkles. So Vata dosha, people who have that main constitution, they're going to get the worst end of skin issues because we dry out as we age, in general, overall. And then the next constitution is the Pitta, which you spoke about, which is the fire element. And so that's going to be, it's going to be in the middle in terms of texture. but you're definitely going to see that redness. Right. And it's neither dry. They can run into acne issues. They can have the rosacea, but we can always recognize by the color of the skin, whether you have white color or Asian color. You always see this redness coming through, and that's that blood, that fire blood coming through. And then the Kapha people, they tend to be thick. They have thick skin, both in mind as well. I almost got into politics. I don't want to go there. But their skin is actually thicker. It also tends to be oily, so their pores can get clogged, and they're generally cold to the touch on the skin. And this is how we know, because there's more adipose tissue right underneath the level of the skin. So those people, they tend not to have the issues of aging and dryness and heating, but they have the issues of having clogged skin. So as the body shifts, we'll see different things, and they tend to look younger through menopause and beyond.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Fascinating and quite different. I mean, in Chinese medicine, a lot of these issues around skin, whatever it is also related to the flow of qi and the flow of blood. So when you see some of the practices, which to us look quite strong, they're often about stimulating qi and blood flow. So there's a lot of slapping and tapping and pulling and pinching that you'll see particularly across North Asia, as being very central to getting, because you're trying to get the qi and the blood to flow. And obviously that's going to create, a sort of a plumping and a youthfulness to the skin often. I mean, if gua sha is done to its strength, you will see it, because its job is to bring up the blood to the skin. I wouldn't recommend you do that at home unless you've had some training, because you could really damage yourself. But I use a rose quartz on mine, and I go gently on my face, and then on the body I'll use a Bian stone, which is a black. I should have brought my stones with me, but I use that on the body. But I don't ever go to the extent. If a practitioner did it on you, then you might actually get the blood to come up and you'll get these sort of marks. But we wouldn't want to do that too much on our face. I know there are some people on Instagram who do that, and I'm like, too strong. You can damage the skin, and we don't want to damage. It's the same with things like dry skin brushing, which is quite popular as well to keep skin, especially if it's dry, and remove the upper layer. I don't like that, because I think you can damage the skin barrier. So these things can be done, but they can be done lightly. And the thing is, we often get a bit over vigorous. And so we need to kind of work, very carefully with these things.
So Ayurveda does recommend the dry brushing.
It does, yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It doesn't recommend it alone. Right.
Yeah.
So what the idea behind the dry brushing is to circulate the lymphatic fluids.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it in the opposite direction. Making it go towards the heart. Right? Towards the heart. Yes, you're always brushing up, and then you're doing oil. Mm-hmm. So what that dry brushing does is it removes the layer of flakes of skin slop. It does that job of sloughing off the skin flakes. There's also a method. So dry brushing is a little bit on the harsher side.
Yeah.
There's also a method of having their gloves that are made out of silk. that will also catch this, and you can do that. The other thing is one of these puppies.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, this is very similar to, and these are made out of 5 elements, I believe, 5 metals, and this will also do the job of moving the tissue under the skin. But again, we don't want to do anything that's damaging.
No. So we need to, we do it, but we do it but we can do it gently. And we can see, because if you do a gua sha like that, which is, it should be done with a simple rose or a clear quartz, you feel the flow, and you notice that if you do it, how much uplifted you feel.
Yes.
Really amazing. Yeah. And we do a lot of lymph stimulating, a lot of rubbing lymph here, loving lymph here, and then working the lymph and up around the backs of the ears. Those are very popular things to do as part of a daily routine to just get that lymph system moving. So you've got the detoxification process going on.
And that's the purpose of doing the Abhyanga and the dry brushing. The other thing that, if you have the time, the other thing that goes along with that is steaming. So you get into once you've done all of your brushing of the lymph and then nourishing the skin and the muscles underneath it, then you do some steaming, which is going to open the pores, and any toxins that have been moving around or moved around by this work that you've done at the skin level will come out of the pores. And then you take a shower. So a lot of people think that you put on your oils and your moisturizers after the shower. No, because all it's going to do is sit on top. You want it to go inside and nourish as many layers of the tissue as possible. So you do it after. You take a shower after you do some heating work and remove some of these toxins. So it's a very similar perspective.
You get that in the Korean. There's Korean sort of bathhouses as well, similar kinds of practices, which have obviously come from China. Or we shouldn't say some people get a bit upset about that, but that's that
from India. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but they are very similar practices that are done there as well.
Or the sweat lodge here in New Mexico.
Or
saunas or wherever. There are only certain ways to. All indigenous people knew these things. They studied nature. They studied the body. They understood that you don't do acid peels on the skin because it's damaging so many other functions of the skin. So those people end up looking a lot older in the long run.
Yeah.
Because you're drying out the skin, you're burning out the skin, and that's the last thing you want to do. Just like you don't want to go out in the middle of the day, full sun, and burn the skin. Why are you going to an esthetician to do these kinds of things? Or scraping. Anything that's harsh to the skin eventually will also damage it. And then damage its functions. So even too much soap, will damage the skin. Since COVID, we've done a lot of these antibacterial soaps. So and antibacterial soaps, alcohol-based cleansing, and all of that is going to just feel how the skin feels. If it doesn't have this soft oil, well, it's not really oil. I don't know how to describe it. It just needs to be soft and silky. Silky is more, the skin should feel silky. When it feels silky, then it is properly protecting the body. It's also anything underneath. It's also allowing for things to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got the function of that immune system.
And if we keep adding these harsh things, we're actually destroying the microbiome of the skin. And the skin has its own microbiome. We have a gut microbiome, we have a vaginal microbiome, an oral microbiome, and we have a skin microbiome. And that's made up of all these bacteria that work together, and fungi and everything else that are there to protect us. And the skin is, as we said right at the beginning, it's the outer layer. It's what we meet the world with. Though in Chinese medicine, we're also, just as I'm sure in yoga, we're also building the Wei Qi field, your energetic field, which should be your first barrier of immunity. And then the skin is the next. So we're giving ourselves layers of protection.
Yes. Yes. Yoga, Ayurveda, we're always working on that level. But, sometimes it's good to focus on the body. There's one thing that I wanted to discuss that women see happening beyond the wrinkles is the thinness of the skin. And so oiling is going to help bring some fat to it. Because that's what's happening. The thin estrogens are moving and they're taken away. They're shifting. But we'll also see red spots. We'll also see age spots. Is that what they're called?
Yeah. Hyperpigmentation.
Hyperpigmentation. We'll see like tiny red spots, and we'll see black spots as well. And so those red spots is Pitta. We know that those are Pitta, and the black ones are Vata. So when we classify them by those constitutions, then we have a good understanding of what needs to be done. So if you've got too many of those red spots, then you might want to use something like rose water or add some rose tea to your system, because also the inner body is feeding us our digestion. So you want to cool down. And when it's those black ones, well, that it's a dryness issue.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I mean, I think we said the inner part, and we're not going to talk a lot about food here, but food is used a lot in Chinese medicine, not regular foods, but certain foods. And one of those is tremella, which is a snow fungus. And it's like a little white mushroom that looks like a plant and looks like a little flower. And you cook that. It's very collagenous in nature. And you often cook it into like a dessert and spoon it. It's almost like a soupy dessert. And that is very highly prized in the Chinese culture for skin, and creating plumpness and putting moisture back in. So if you can find it,
Tremella, you said?
Tremella.
Did you spell it?
Tremella. Tremella. And it's called a snow fungus. And it's extremely prized for skincare. And the other thing that people eat a lot is snow fungus, and definitely that's worth it. And then the other thing, of course, that Chinese people, and I read about it, dermatologist, Chinese medicine dermatologist, she's like 100, still working. And in her diet, she has always daily goji berries. And the other is walnuts. Walnuts is a little bit more hair, but goji berries are highly prized for their skin properties. They contain polysaccharides, they contain precursors for collagen, and they're this amazing sort of superfruit in Chinese medicine, which are often added to particularly things like the rice porridges, the conges that people eat. I love them. I eat them. I would say, if they come from China, wash them extremely well because of China's environment isn't the cleaner. So I don't pick them up and just eat them. I tend to wash them very, very thoroughly, and then I'll add them and let them be cooked in with the congee. Just because, there's a lot of heavy metals in China today in the soil, unfortunately. So I very, very much like to use it. Oh, I'm stuck there. I'm frozen.
You are frozen, but we can hear you.
But you can hear me. You can see me looking funny in their webinars about. Hopefully it'll come back in a minute. But goji berries are real go-to and recommended by somebody who's lived to be more than 100 and still working as a dermatologist today.
So, in Ayurveda, we don't necessarily have special foods for the skin because when we're looking at the digestion, we are looking at these 3 doshas. We're looking at how we can digest the foods. And so if we cannot digest food, then it's going to impact our bodies and all of the other functional tissues that come from the digestion. And so this is one of the reasons why when someone eats something that they're allergic to or poisonous, one of the first places they're going to see it or feel it after the gut is going to be on their skin. There will be an immediate reaction. So we don't necessarily have special food, but what we want to do is we use foods with spices. Ghee, my favorite. Ghee is clarified butter. Ghee can be used on the skin, and that will help some of the inflammatory conditions. And it's really good to be eating ghee. And so we will have, if there's a skin issue, specific like psoriasis or rosacea, then quite often what we're doing is we're doing a twofold approach to it. So we might do some sort of a paste that may include turmeric in it. Yes, I know it yellows, but it's amazing once you get it cleaned up. To cool the skin down, because usually there's a skin issue. And if it's a Vata person, then you want to have some oil with those herbs. So we'll also use neem as that if there's a fungal issue. We'll use various things, and all of these things you can eat as well. So we'll do those types of things, and then we'll also do something that is rejuvenating. So we have these herbal jams that we will eat, which is very rejuvenating for the skin. None of these systems work alone, though. So you have to have the regular care of oiling of the skin, of sweating. Early on, I said the bone tissue. So that means that you need to be doing your exercise, some weightlifting.
Yes.
That's going to help the skin in terms of elasticity and breathing. And the blood is circulating through, so you're getting some color. If you don't do that, then you're going to be a little on the gray side, or in shade. So there are, we also use sandalwood as part of the paste. We will do aloe as well, both internally as well as externally. And then you want to look at vitamin A and C rich foods. So like your goji berry, we have the amla, which is the gooseberry, which is going to take care of a similar thing to that goji berry, because it's got this astringent, sour, high vitamin C count. And that's what you need to help protect the skin and as well as to heal the skin. Vitamin A is in carrots, that sort of thing.
Yes. And then, of course, there's an endless, and I'm still stuck for some reason, there is an endless amount of beautifying herbs and herbal formulas out there. I mean, it's just vast, and they can be drawn upon as herbal tinctures and tonics. They can also be added to our foods, astragalus and Chinese angelica, which many people know as dong quai, are very common. And there's been a very great popular rise through, I think, TikTok and other places on a herb called Hei Shi Wu, become very, very popular, and everything seems to be sold out on it, that has a lot of anti-aging type properties. Probably it finds itself into all sorts of brands and products and heaven knows what. I tend to find that that's better used in a tincture with other herbs in the right formulation. So probably heard me say we don't often eat individual herbs in Chinese medicine. Occasionally we do, but these all have good skin properties for various reasons. The dong quai is very much known as a female ginseng, and ginseng, of course, is another fantastic herb. But again, can you eat it? Is it right for you? That's a different question. It's down to your constitution. It isn't just a case of run to the shop and buy it and eat it, because it may not be the best for you.
And that's a good place to guide you in terms of what to put on the skin is if you can eat it. So start out with foods, foods and oils and fats that are healthy. If you can eat it, you can put it on the body, so don't put anything on the body that you can't eat. So that's the other side of it. And yeah, not every food, not every herb is going to work for you because each one of these things have different properties. So we might use shatavari as an herbal rejuvenator for women, but we may also use ashwagandha, and each one of these have different properties, and each one of these are going to affect the skin. So remember that it's the skin is going to show everything. It's going to show everything. It's going to show how you care for yourself. It shows whether or not you're exercising and breathing and hydrating, all of these things. So it's worthwhile taking good care of the skin and making it a daily practice.
Yeah, I think that's also true, that these practices are not occasional. They are, I think we've said that all along there. They don't have to be elaborate practices, but they can be rituals. And and of course now my video is gone, but there are a lot of Qigong facial practices. And I was going to show one, but now wait till it's playing up. But I will actually, what I'll do when we put this out, I'll maybe add a small extra video. But there are some really beautiful, simple Qigong rejuvenating practices that we can actually do using our own energy and our hands to literally bring that. And my teacher, who actually taught me this Qi facial, she calls it, had a woman do this, and this woman did it for weeks and weeks, and her friend said, I've had surgery, what have you been doing? She said, no, I've just been doing this practice, which is also very good. It has liver elements into it. It has elements of stimulating your vagus nerve so you feel less stressed, and it showed up in this person's face.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that sounds... There's this practice that has been coming up, and I'm not 100% sure where they're getting it from. It's called face yoga. So it may be some sort of a combination of the Chinese practices and I don't know, and some of the facial care. that is done within Ayurveda and the Indian tradition. So I just wanted to share what to expect for next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about hair. So women going through perimenopause, menopause, again, it's this external system that we kind of decide who we are, how we show our face in the world. It's partly through our hair. It's about beauty for us, but it's really so much more. It's got many more purposes than just styling and looking pretty and a function of who you are. So that's happening. And I just wanted to mention this. I'm doing a kitchen clean out challenge starting on the 28th. And you know how we talk about cooking and food and digestion. Well, it starts in your kitchen. And if you can't find the things in your kitchen, you're not going to do what you want to do. Or even if you can't find the things in your bathroom for your skin, if that's where you do all of that kind of ritual, you're not going to do it. So that's what we're doing for this upcoming fall season, where we start drying out and we start going back and we have more appetite, we have more digestion. So we're going to start wanting to cook more than we have before.
Oh, yes. That sounds so good, Chitra. So good.
Yeah, it's very simple. Yeah.
Yummy.
And it's all paying subscribers. That's it. Just come for a month, but come for a year, you'll get this challenge and you won't have to do anything.
Beautiful. I think we've talked as a good introduction to skin here. I mean, it's infinite. There are so many, because we can dive down into so many different aspects of skin, from aging to acne to, as we said, the hyperpigmentation. And each of those would have a different root cause and be treated differently. But it's like a whole world there.
Exactly. Which is why in the West we have so many, like, go to a GP and then you have all these specialists, right? Except for our specialists are looking at what can go wrong with these constitutions, with these functional tissues, with these organs, and with the psyche itself, and with the aura, as you said.
Indeed.
It's kind of hard talking to you.
I know, and it doesn't want to come back, and I can't see why, because my internet is looking quite good here, so I don't know why. Oh, well, it wasn't meant to be. So I hope you did that. So thank you, and down to you too, Chitra.
Oh, thank you so much, and we will see you next Thursday.
We will.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.